Before we go any further, I want you to pause for just a moment. If you've ever smiled in front of people, while something inside you felt quietly unfinished, if you've ever lived a life that looked right on paper, but somehow felt wrong in your chest, if you've ever questioned your own heart, but swallowed the truth because it felt too dangerous to say out loud, then stay with me. And before we begin, take a second, subscribe to this channel. Not just because of me, but because the stories shared here are not just stories. They are mirrors, sometimes uncomfortable ones, sometimes gentle ones, but always honest. They reflect love, regret, choices, silence, and sometimes they reveal parts of you that you've been avoiding for a very long time now. Let me tell you what happened. My name is Lauren. I'm 32 years old, and for most of my adult life, I believed I understood what it meant to be settled. I had everything people quietly measure success by: a home that stayed clean, a marriage that never caused gossip, a routine that made sense, and a calendar filled with responsibilities that gave the illusion of purpose. From the outside, my life was stable, predictable, safe. But there's something people don't often say out loud: safety. When stretched too far, can start to feel like silence, and silence, when it lingers long enough, begins to feel like disappearing. That was the truth. I didn't have words for back then. I wasn't living, I was existing. Every morning started the same way. 6:15 a.m., not 6:10, not 6:20, exactly 6:15. The alarm would ring softly, never loud enough to startle, just enough to interrupt sleep in a polite, almost apologetic way. I would reach for it before the second chime, like I'd trained myself not to let anything linger longer than necessary. Beside me, Michael would stir, just slightly, a shift in the sheets, a quiet breath. Then he would settle again, drifting back into sleep like nothing had happened, and I would lie there, eyes open, fixed on the ceiling, not thinking, not feeling, just there. No dread, no excitement, just neutrality. And people don't talk enough about neutrality, because over time, it doesn't stay neutral. It turns into something heavier, something quieter, something that slowly empties you out without making a sound. Michael and I had been married for 8 years. 8 years is enough time to learn someone completely, or at least, to believe you have. I knew the way he folded his shirts, always with sharp edges, precise corners. I knew the way he cleared his throat before speaking, when something mattered to him. I knew how he checked the door twice every night. Even when he was sure it was locked, he was steady, reliable, gentle, the kind of man people describe with admiration. Lucky, my friends would say, and they were. Right. That was the hardest part. There was no betrayal, no screaming, arguments, no slammed doors or dramatic exits. Distance, the quiet kind, the kind that doesn't arrive all at once, but grows slowly, inch by inch. One day you realize you've been standing across from each other for months without truly seeing one. Another. We still talked, but we didn't connect. We still ate dinner together, but the television filled the space where intimacy used to live. Love didn't shatter, it faded, not like a storm, but like mist. And sometimes, in the middle of ordinary moments, a question would rise inside me without warning. Asterisk, when was the last time I felt chosen? Asterisk, not needed. Reliable, chosen, there's a difference. Being needed feels practical. Being chosen feels alive. And somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling alive. The night everything shifted didn't feel important at first. It was a Thursday. Ordinary in every possible way. I was lying on the couch, scrolling through my phone without really seeing anything. My thumb moved out of habit. Michael was in the kitchen, rinsing dishes. The soft clink of plates, the steady rhythm of running water, it was all so familiar that I barely noticed it. Then something caught my eye, an advertisement. Friday night dance social, open to couples and singles. No experience required. I almost kept scrolling, but something small, almost invisible, made me pause. Dance. I hadn't thought about dancing in years. Not seriously. Not intentionally, but I used to. When I was younger, before everything became structured. Before life turned into lists and schedules and responsibilities that never seemed to end. I clicked the post. There were pictures, people laughing, moving, smiling in a way that felt unguarded. And in that moment, something unfamiliar stirred inside my chest. Not attraction, not rebellion, curiosity. A quiet, persistent curiosity. What would it feel like to move again, without purpose? To sweat for something that wasn't stress? To step into a room where no one knew me as someone's wife, someone's responsibility, someone's predictable version? At dinner that night, I mentioned it casually. There's a dance social happening tomorrow, I said. I was thinking about checking it out. Michael looked up immediately. He smiled. He said. That was it. No hesitation, no questions. No, I'll come with you, just approval. And for reasons I couldn't fully explain at the time. It hurt. I didn't know what I wanted from him. Maybe resistance. Maybe curiosity. Maybe just a little sign that it mattered. But his easy acceptance felt like confirmation of something I hadn't yet admitted to myself. I had already drifted somewhere he couldn't see. Friday came. I stood in front of the mirror longer than usual, not dressing provocatively, not trying to be someone else, just careful, choosing something that felt like me, but a version of me I hadn't seen in a long time. I told myself it was harmless. It was just dancing, nothing more. The studio was warm when I walked in. Music floated through the air, soft Latin rhythms blending with low conversations and occasional laughter. There were people everywhere, couples moving together effortlessly, singles standing near the edges, pretending to be more confident than they felt. For a moment, I almost turned around. I felt out of place, like I had stepped into someone else's life by mistake. Then a voice broke through my hesitation. First time. I turned. His name was Jason. There was something about him that didn't feel forced. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He just seemed comfortable in his own skin. Yes, he said gently, you look like you're meant to be on the floor. It wasn't flirtatious. It wasn't heavy. It was affirming. And I realized something in that moment that startled me. I hadn't felt affirmed in years. The first dance was simple, basic steps, nothing complicated. He didn't pull. He didn't invade my space. He guided clear, steady, respectful. And I followed. And somewhere between the rhythm and the movement, something shifted inside me. Not desire, not yet. Presence. For the first time in a long time. I wasn't thinking about tomorrow. I wasn't replaying yesterday. I was just there, feet moving, music filling my chest, breath syncing with rhythm, alive. I went home that night with a feeling I couldn't fully name. Light, not because anything extraordinary had happened, but because something inside me had woken up. Michael noticed. You seem happy, he said. I am, I replied, and I meant it, but happiness, I would later realize, can be complicated when it feels borrowed. One Friday became 2, then 3. Then every week, Jason and I danced often, but not exclusively. It never felt inappropriate, at least, not at first. The environment was social, structured, safe, but conversations started to stretch. He walked me to my car. We talked about things people don't usually say out. Loud dreams we had postponed, quiet fear of becoming stuck. The difference between stability and fulfillment. He asked me something that stayed with me long after the music ended. How do you know if you're settling? The word echoed in my mind. Settling. Was I? Or was I just bored? Or was boredom something deeper? Something I hadn't allowed myself to explore. Our conversations moved beyond the studio. Messages during the week. Nothing explicit, just thoughtful. He told me I had depth. that I shouldn't shrink into routine, that I deserved passion. Passion. That word felt dangerous, because passion isn't stable. Passion burns. And I had been living in something far quieter, far cooler. The night, everything almost crossed a line, came quietly. The room had emptied earlier than usual. The music played softly in the background. The lights were dimmer. We were near the mirrored wall. He pulled me closer during a slow turn. Closer than usual. My breath caught, and suddenly, my mind split into two voices. You deserve to feel wanted, the other whispered. You are about to lose everything. He looked at me serious this time, present. You don't have to go back to something that feels empty, he said. And for a moment, I believed him, not because he was right, but because I wanted him to be closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his breath. Then, without warning, face appeared in my mind. Not angry, not suspicious, just trusting, and something inside me cracked open, because I realized something that terrified me. The betrayal had already happened. Not physically, but emotionally. In my longing, in my secrecy, in the parts of myself I had given away without even realizing it. I stepped back. My hands were shaking. Can't, I whispered. He exhaled slowly. You're choosing comfort, he said. I shook my head. No, I replied. I'm choosing honesty, even if it came late, like it's pressing against your chest. When I walked in, Michael was asleep on the couch. The television cast a soft glow. Across the room, dinner sat untouched on the table. He had waited for me. That simple detail broke something inside me more than anything else could have. He looked peaceful, safe, and I had come so close to trading that safety. For a moment of validation, I sat beside him, and I cried. Not because I almost kissed someone else, but because I realized how close I had come to destroying something real, just to escape something uncomfortable. I deleted Jason's number, blocked it. I never went back to the studio. Michael noticed the shift in me almost immediately. Are you okay? He asked. And for the first time in years, I told the truth. I feel lost. Not about Jason, about me. About the emptiness I didn't know how to fix. He didn't interrogate me. He didn't accuse. He just pulled me close. We'll figure it out, said together. That word felt different now. Together, assumed, chosen. What followed wasn't dramatic. There were no grand gestures, no cinematic moments. Work, uncomfortable conversations, admitting things we had both avoided, acknowledging needs that had gone unmet. We started small. Talking without screens between us, taking walks without distractions, trying things that felt new, even if they were simple. We began choosing each other again, intentionally. Daily, and something unexpected happened. Love didn't return as a spark, it returned as effort, and somehow, that felt deeper, stronger, more real. 2 years have passed since. Then. Our life isn't perfect. Small things. We still forget to communicate. Sometimes we still burn dinner on busy nights, but we show up, and that's the difference. Once told me I didn't have to return to a life that didn't make me happy, but he was wrong. You don't run from unhappiness, you face it. Understand it, you rebuild from it. Something new didn't fix my life, it revealed it. It exposed the cracks I had been ignoring, and it forced me to ask a question I could no longer avoid. Who do I want to be? The person who chases validation, or the person who protects what truly matters? If I could speak to the version of myself who walked into that studio for the first time, I would tell her this: you are not empty. You are unheard. You are not unloved. You are disconnected, and attention is not the same as worth. Worth is built quietly in forgiveness, in effort, in choosing each other, even when it would be easier not to. If this story stirred something inside you, if you've ever stood on the edge of a decision that could change everything, Remember this: temptation doesn't always look like destruction. Sometimes it looks like joy. Sometimes it feels like awakening. But not everything that wakes you up is meant to stay. Real love isn't always thrilling. Sometimes it's intentional. Sometimes it's quiet. And sometimes that's the bravest kind of love there is. The hardest truths are the ones that save us.